Hey, what up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm just gonna go over that AMA Ask Me Anything Q&A they had with the devs at Inzoi Studio yesterday, depending what time zone you were in. I'm gonna go ahead and try to keep this short and sweet once again, because your time's valuable. Probably just came here to get a breakdown, so you wouldn't have to sit through it. But anyways, so I'm gonna go over the 26 questions that I gathered on here. No doubt there might be more, but I just wanted to go ahead and get it out while the iron's hot and make sure you guys get the update. We had 3 developers sitting on the panel to answer some questions. So we had Alex, creative director, who leads the game's vision, storytelling, and overall design. He answered questions about school systems, relationships, and hospital mechanics. We also had Eddie, the technical director, who handles AI systems, optimization, and core gameplay mechanics. He spoke about hair physics, memory systems, and game performance improvements. And then we had Leonard, art director, who oversees character models, animations, and visual fidelity, discussed hairstyle improvements, 3D printing, and swimming mechanics. They also briefly mentioned Kajun, of course. You'll find out why later on. Who's the executive director. By the way, if you're new and you haven't looked up too much information about Inzoi by now. So I'm just jumping into it, rapid fire. We got number 1, why doesn't a facial recognition feature work on Android devices? Or rather, why is it mostly used on Apple devices whenever we see like gameplay with influencers on YouTube, etc.? Well, Apple holds a patent on the technology Inzoi uses for facial recognition, making it exclusive to iPhones. Currently, there is no equivalent solution for Android. The team is exploring alternative methods, such as utilizing webcams for facial tracking on PCs and laptops in the future. I mean, they went that route. I don't think there's going to be an issue going forward to use any other camera, but I think at their disposal, that might have been the most convenient that they saw, and it probably works the most seamlessly at the moment. Yeah, not a big issue. Next, what's a unique feature the developers are most excited about? I'm not sure if the question was worded exactly like that, but that's what I got here from my transcript. So, the 3D printer. This AI-driven tool allows players to turn 2D images into fully interactive 3D objects. Unlike traditional life simulation games that rely on pre-made assets or modding, this system lets users create unique objects without advanced technical knowledge. Objects generated by the AI can now be categorized as furniture, making them fully interactive. Additionally, players can create character accessories such as attachable angel wings or other custom elements. Some developers even experiment with making guns, though they are non-functional and purely decorative. Alright, moving on. Will Inzoi characters have memory? This is a good one. I personally had this question, basically, just to put it in context, is it seems like they wanted to know if the world had like persistent memory of conversations you previously had. Like, say for instance, when you talk to ChatGPT, it knows, or even dumber than that, Siri, if you talk to them, will they remember from previous conversations that you had, or things like that. Full memory functionality is not yet implemented for early access. The game does track significant life events such as marriages and divorces. Future updates will expand this system to make interactions feel more lifelike, allowing Zois to recall past conversations and experiences. Honestly, I think this is pretty important, and I'm a little bit surprised that they didn't focus too much on this in a life simulation game, because a game as old as Skyrim, I remember, depending what you did in the world, obviously this is scripted, I'm pretty sure. But those moments where you went back to them, they're aware of what you did in the world, and that kind of made it feel lived in. I think that's integral in world building. And in RPG, but this is a life simulation, I kind of put them hand in hand, RPG, life simulation. I feel like there's no way for you to play a life simulation without role playing. but hey, that's just me. Next, how does InZoi's job system differ from other life simulation games? So really this question was worded, how does InZoi stand out against other life simulation games? Not necessarily job systems, but the answer was geared more towards the job system as being the thing that sets them apart. So, active job system. Unlike traditional rabbit hole mechanics where characters disappear for work, InZoi lets players actively participate in their jobs. Players can build workplace relationships, including business-specific interactions, separate from friends or romantic relationships. Promotion system allows career progression based on performance, leading to higher salaries. The game also includes freelance careers like writing. That's a big one for me. That was like my bread and butter in The Sims. That's how I became a millionaire. No time, those royalties. And where earnings depend on skill level and success. So those are the extent of. So a caveat was, can you work from home? At some point, they touched on this, and that was their kind of answer to it. You can do freelance work, which would be considered work from home, but it's more like a hobby. I mean, a job. I mean, writing, no doubt, is a job, a career, but unless you become professional or make enough, it's more of a hobby. Those are the types of freelance work that you can do. Can players build a... Okay, so this question was more of like a joke, but apparently the panel of devs took it seriously. The guy actually translating and for the panel and just interacting with us in English in the Discord AMA, which he did a great job. Really well-spoken guy. Really relatable. Anyways, so he elaborated, this is mostly a joke, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Some player apparently asked, could you build a shrine and make sacrifices to the god Psycat? So, no, sacrifice is not allowed, but players can design custom shrines using build mode and 3D printer. Psycat was originally planned as a deity in game's lore, but has since been reworked as an AI supervisor in the game's fictional AR company. So rather than a god, it's more of like a supervisor. I guess I feel like I should just go ahead and touch on Psycat while it came up here. Yeah, Psycat acts as a player's boss, assigning tasks and guiding them through their experience in the world. This ensures there's some structured storytelling, but players still have autonomy to shape their own experiences. So this Psycat thing and the cats all over the place apparently came about from the game director, executive director Kajun, which saw cats on his journey to work in the morning. And so I guess he was really fond of them, you know. So yeah, now it's in the game. All right, next. What graphical advantages does Unreal Engine 5 bring to InZoi? That's a pretty good question because I've seen a lot of like blunders from developing companies using Unreal Engine 5. It seems to have like a lot of optimization issues. Ultimately, I'm not sure if it's the engine itself or, no offense, but laziness on the devs' part who are using it that aren't leveraging the technology in order to optimize it. Because, I mean, what they discuss here, to answer the question, let me just go ahead and then I'll elaborate. But the advantages are Lumen, a dynamic light system that enhances realism by accurately simulating how light interacts with surfaces. And then you got Nanite and optimization technologies that selectively renders objects based on priority, allowing for high quality visuals without excessive computational load. And then you got MetaHuman facial rigging, which helps create natural and expressive character animations, preventing an uncanny valley effect. All right, so Nanite especially would help with optimization because it pretty much only renders like all the way down to like the polygons, I believe. of, the player's focus in order to minimize the load whenever you're playing the game. So I don't know if they spend enough time or they leave that like the last on their list of things to do whenever they develop games on Unreal Engine 5. But I guess it remains to be seen if that changes here in Inzoi. They seem to be focusing on optimization. So let's see what happens with that. And then the uncanny valley with metahumans. They're referring to the realism that you can achieve with these character models. It can be pretty alarming when they don't act natural. So like come off like, I don't know, aliens or, possessed by ghosts or something like that. This is one of third words, but this is what I'm understanding from what they mean by uncanny. Moving on, does Inzoi have a structured storyline or is it fully player driven? The game provides minimal lore to set the foundation, such as key characters like Psycat, Henry, the HR manager, and Bora, a central promotional figure. Beyond that, players are given maximum freedom to create their own stories and shape their world. Depending on, I guess, your play style and what you're used to, kind of captivated you when it came to life simulation games. This is a good or bad thing for me. I'm glad that they entertain storylines. Kind of reminds me of The Sims busting out. I might have talked about it a few times in this channel, or I will. This is one of my favorite games of all time. The Sims busting out. So it had a story basically like you are moving out of your mom's house and you gotta like find your own way, and then along the way they had like check boxes in order for you to move to the next step in the next neighborhood, next house or whatever. So I don't know, I thought that was pretty fun, and I think that would be fun even today, but they wanted to make sure you have as much freedom as possible, which I think it goes without saying. In a life sim where you can create anybody regardless, you can infer and create your own story. But hey, moving on, I'm on like question 8 right now. It's quite a bit. Are there any unintended graphical issues caused by character customization? So this question was, I'm trying to remember exactly how it was worded, but let me just go into the details. Some pixel spills and unnatural artifacts may appear when creating extremely large Zois. The way this was really worded, the question, it was people felt like they noticed that when it came to the male characters, there wasn't as many detail as there was for the female character, and that was because the male character is completely different. The male body was different from the female, so I guess players were saying like if they use similar textures or whatever the case may be, that they'd be able to have as many features or customization options, which I used the studio to create a character. I didn't really see any issues there. The issue I saw was limited like attire, things to wear, shoes, etc. for guys, which naturally happens in a lot of these types of games because they don't expect you to be the audience. So yeah, so this was their response. So they said that they added more body types essentially, or maybe not more body types, but it's like they made sure you don't just have like a couple options, whether or not it'll be exactly on a slider or you can just pull, kind of like The Sims. I don't remember them going into detail about that, but yes. So with the larger Sims, they're saying like they may be pixel spills, basically a clipping almost through clothing because it originally wasn't designed to go that far as a Zoi size. The devs prioritize customization freedom over slight graphical imperfections, so players have flexibility in character design. Moving on, what family interactions are currently available in early access? This was asked a few times, and it was touched on another Q&A. Essentially, Kajun had himself a little while back, and it's playing in this video. But right now, family interactions are limited, but more features will be added over time. Available interactions include children can ask parents to do laundry. Kids can ask to make food because they shouldn't be in a chef's apron standing on top of the stove, frying some bacon. And there should be more group and family activities on the way as well. But if you look at this video and there's additional videos you can look at, there are already plenty of group activities. I guess family specific, they wanted to go ahead and, touch on it, but that's what we have. Can Zois engage in romantic interactions leading to having children? Yeah, so they're asking straight up about sex in this question, but they tiptoed hard around these questions. I guess in the chat it was supposed to be up to, I guess, teen, PG-13. So they expressed many times throughout this Q&A that this game was geared towards a wider audience, and they didn't want to make anything lewd or too revealing to get a higher rating than what they have right now, which is a teen. So the game includes baby making interaction, but the visual representation is very subtle to comply with age ratings across regions. Players will need to use their imagination as the interaction is more implied than explicitly shown. So the answer is yes, but sort of. What pregnancy and newborn related gameplay features are available? So before we saw that they just changed into like some kind of gown whenever they got pregnant, and they went around and lived their life same as before, so to speak. So I guess people were worried and asked that question, but their answer was more interactions than before, but still somewhat limited in early access. Pregnant Zois can announce their pregnancy to friends and receive congratulations, experience cravings, right? Like in real life. They had trouble describing cravings. I guess it was like a translation thing, but a lot of people in chat were like, obviously, there's a lot of girls that are going to be playing this game, and they're like, cravings? Duh. Cravings, it's going to be a big thing in the game apparently. Newborn interactions are currently minimal, but the team plans to expand their system in the future. Development constraints. Creating unique animations for tiny baby bodies is resource intensive, which delayed some features. And that makes sense. People don't realize it, but babies and little kids, their bodies and development is very complex. Being in the, I could say, medical field as a medic and firefighter, proportion wise, there's a lot of issues, and probably no doubt in rendering and making it probably takes longer. So moving on, why do driving mechanics feel unnatural compared to games like GTA? I think this one's pretty straightforward, but they answered it. The game prioritizes citywide simulation over detailed driving physics. So they elaborated and said why they kind of focused on making driving limited. That way they could focus on a feature that they're more interested in. That they view as more important for this type of game, and that is simulating the game, right? Simulating the Zois in the world, and that is something else that is pretty hardware intensive, or the game prioritizes citywide simulation over detailed driving physics. So at the moment, they're planning to have up to 300 Zois simulated at once, even off screen, which is awesome and is one hell of a feat. And I can't wait to see it in action. I wondered about that. Does the world go on without you? That's one of my biggest questions. Like, that is a determining factor for me as to whether or not a world feels lived in or is truly alive. I know it's a life sim. You control, families, etc. But I don't want to control every family, because that doesn't seem fun. So yeah, even off screen, up to 300, which limits resources for complex vehicle mechanics. Possible future improvements: better optimization for nearby cars, focusing on player visible vehicles, while deprioritizing off-screen ones. Further refinements to make driving feel less clunky. They have plans in the future to make driving more natural, so to speak, by optimizing the same way they do with like the hair and I guess using nanite. Well, it's not necessarily like nanite, but what I mentioned before about focusing on what the player can see and I guess increasing the range over time to optimize it. Can players build a completely new city from scratch? The answer is no, due to computational limitations. However, players can heavily customize existing cities, making them feel unique. Future technology advancements may make this feature possible, but it's not feasible with current hardware. So they're considering everyone's hardware in this, right? There's people out there that probably got super rig, god rig, like myself. Just kidding. I wish. So they're considering how everybody don't have the capability to even run their game on like ultra settings. So adding this would make it even more intensive for everybody's hardware and take even more time with optimization. So once again, it's a game of focus, right? So they're focused on holistically what would make a good life simulation game for everyone. Why do Zois wear towels in the shower instead of just blurring out private parts? This is a question I had too. I mean, this is a realistic game, and it was kind of weird when I saw a Zoi sitting on the toilet fully clothed. Yes, there was like some kind of little blur thing, but then you could still see the clothes, like literally their pants. But the problem is they described no matter what you do, they haven't figured out this glitch yet. It's blurred out, but because you have free range on the camera, you can move to the side on either side and you can go ahead and see the Zoi, even though it's technically blurred out. And so they're saying there's no way to do it. A lot of people in chat were basically saying that, swimwear, underwear would be more appropriate in the shower, like GTA does, bathing suit essentially, which I don't know. Nobody really feels weird about it because you go to the beach and you have the little shower thing. You're washing off like the salt water, and we're used to seeing that. So in the shower, it doesn't really scream at you as uncanny as somebody wearing a towel that you will use to dry yourself in the shower. Yeah, that is an issue that they've had. They don't want to make this like a mature rated game. They want to keep their rating, and so they say the developers tried to go ahead and do it without any clothes and blurring out, and unfortunately it looks way too suggestive because of how realistic the game looks. But like many people have said, that there will be mods to make it more realistic. At the very least, I would have liked to see Zois at least pull down the pants if you're a chick sitting there and you have your underwear on. In that way, you would see, that action, and it makes sense. Same thing as like, I don't know, say like clothes drop on the floor. You walk into a shower, you have your bathing suit on. It's a little bit less unimmersive. So their answer was hyper-realistic graphics make simple blurring look inappropriate. Unlike cartoony games where blurring is effective, InZoi's realism makes blurred nudity feel more suggestive rather than censored. Developers experiment with steam effects, but it didn't work consistently. Alternative solutions would be, as I mentioned, underwear, etc. Moving on. Will there be a larger, more official Q&A in the future? Yes, this session was casual, but a major event will be held soon to answer bigger, more anticipated questions in a professional setting. So this one was kind of done in a little office that they had, just kind of kicking it with the guys in Discord, or guys and girls. And yeah. So moving on, next question. Will there be more diverse hairstyles, especially for black and curly hair? They touched on this and they kind of went in depth into it. And on the one hand, I felt like it was a bit much as far as details, but regardless, I feel like I understand where they're coming from and describing that it's not they refrain from doing this. It's very difficult, kind of like simulating babies or making sure it's well optimized, not having too many things in focus for the player, etc. But to answer this, they said yes. The team recognized the lack of black and super curly hairstyles based on community feedback. No curly and textured hairstyles will be new curly and textured hairstyles will be included in the March 28 release. The reason these hairstyles were previously underrepresented was technical difficulty. Creating tightly coiled or curly hair is far more complex than straight hair. It's resource intensive. A single high detail black hairstyle requires as much storage and processing power as an entire character model head to toe. That's crazy. That says a lot, but yes, it's really wiry and curly. It's not just in games, but even like hair transplant, they have like issues with, black hair, etc. So no hate, just a lot of hard work for little return, and this coming from a black guy. Anyways, this can impact performance on lower end PCs. Optimization tip. If players experience performance drops, this was a joke. Balding a Zoi reduces load significantly according to the devs, both in-game and real life. So live life on easy mode. Go bald. Will tattoos be available in early access? Yes, but limited at launch. Early access will include facial tattoos, neck tattoos, visible above clothing. The devs are considering expanding tattoo options based on player demand. Will an active school system be added for children? Yes, but not at launch. The devs recognize the importance of children going to school as an equivalent to adults going to work. Due to the complexity of developing a full-fledged school system, it will be implemented in future updates. This one's pretty confusing because we've seen kids with backpacks playing around outside and everything. So you tell me like the kids are gonna just sit around all day? Like that's pretty unimmersive. Hopefully they have like a rabbit hole. So wording in the question here, it says, will an active school system? Maybe they mean if the kids will, actively be able to go to school. And I'm leaning towards that pretty heavily here. I feel like there will be maybe some rabbit hole events as we're used to in The Sims with this, as well as hospital, which we'll touch on later on. If you're curious about what will happen with pregnancy and hospital, if you get sick, can you go to hospital, take care of things. But anyways, next, will pets be included in the game? This one's crazy that they answered it the way they did, because everything you've seen with the cats, there's been like pandas and stuff shown in the game, kind of pushes you to believe that you'll at least have a cat pet. And yeah, apparently pets are planned but not available in early access. The devs want to create a fully interactive pet system rather than just having animals exist passively, like the school system. No specific release date yet, but it's high priority feature for future updates. I feel like this is one of those things that it would have been okay and we would have understand to just have a pet that you can't do much with in your house that you chose to have. Like, option, click on the wild pet and be like domesticate or adopt or go somewhere and just bring one home, and you can't do much with it. At least we have one there for those people that are interested. But hey, it's not wrong from their perspective either to want like a polished feature when it comes to pets. Will controller support be available? Not at launch. This one hurt because I use controllers all the time. Xbox One Elite all day. So not at launch, but coming soon after early access. The devs prioritized other features first, but controller support will be added in a post-launch update. Will InZOi be fully playable on the Steam Deck? So it runs on Steam Deck, but it isn't fully optimized. The devs haven't worked directly with Valve for full Steam Deck support, so some settings will need manual adjustments. That being said, I believe they mentioned that Steam Decks possibly could be used as controllers for Inzoi if you wanted to do that rather than keyboard and mouse. If it runs on the Steam Deck, then you could probably use it as a controller. From my understanding, that's worth reading into some more. Can Zois commit murder? This is a question that a lot of people ask, and it wasn't really about murder. It's like, I mean, you have a life sim game. It's not all roses and butterflies. And if it was, that'd be a really boring game that I would not play for like more than a few minutes. But not specifically for the option to kill people, but that was asked constantly. It was spammed in the chat, murder, murder, murder. But the answer was not directly, but players can set houses on fire, and it would be fun to play as a firefighter. Can't wait. And if Zois fail to escape, they will die. While there's no direct murder command, there are indirect ways to cause a Zoi's death. The dev jokingly suggested that players would have to convince their jury that their arson was accidental. Like, I dropped a match. When have you not dropped a match in a house on kerosene by mistake? Anyways, will swimming pools and swimming be available? This was another blunder in out of all of these questions, because we've seen pools consistently. We've seen people on surfboards practicing on the beach, etc. You know, we see the water right there. But they're saying no, not in early access. A swimming feature was in development, but the devs weren't satisfied with the quality. It will be added in future update once it meets their standards. So understand the standard thing, and they don't want to fall into the same category as other games that put out an unfinished mess, so to speak. But nevertheless, this is a kind of a sore spot, at least for me. I was looking forward to having a pool at the house at least you could swim in. I didn't care too much about the beach. I totally understand, like, going out that far, or even surfing, that seems difficult. But swimming in a pool, it's very limited and in scope from what I would, gather. Moving on, next question. Will hospitals and medical careers be in the game? So the answer, like a lot of them, which is kind of understandable, it is early access and this is a massive game. It is not like The Sims. I want people to understand that this game is not like cartoony, and in The Sims, there's literally no ray tracing. It's all fake lighting. Like, it's not as a daunting game to make as far as like game mechanics. But with this game, it will take a lot more. So I do understand them kind of trying to give us the chance to play this game earlier than they would anticipate, because the longer they leave this game like in development, there's a chance that it will fall into the same trap as like Skull and Bones that was in development forever, or I think it's like Good and Evil or something like that. I forgot this game, but there's games that are in development forever to the point where they're forgotten. And this was a chance for them, like many people suggested. I suggested this. I thought this was a great idea. Put out this game in early access, let us give you some feedback. Let's play this game. Yeah, it's not like the best version of it, but we can grow kind of together, that kind of thing. So I want to kind of give everybody that take on it, and maybe even advice, just this is what this game is supposed to be on early access, essentially. Hopefully it's not full price though. People are gonna be mad about that, and totally understand that as well. Hospitals. The devs find it challenging to develop realistic hospital gameplay, particularly diagnostic mechanics. Future updates may include medical careers like doctors and nurses, along with a variety of illnesses and injuries. So along with creating a hospital, it's not just a hospital and go get checked in and then you see your Zoi go to a room, sit there and whatnot. So there needs to be like some kind of dialogue. If that's the one part of the game that's kind of lacking, it's gonna be a sore eye. So diagnostic mechanics, they mean like along with the illnesses that needs to be created, along with symptoms and all those things that the doctor, the character in the game need to diagnose for. Yeah, all those details need to be in place, and it's just gonna take a lot. I'm not making excuses for them, but I get it. They also mentioned, like I said before, Kajun, the game executive director, if you want specific features like pets, schools, and hospitals, as far as prioritization is concerned, you should probably, mention it, hint, hint, cough, cough, nudge, nudge, as much as possible in Discord. A larger event will be held in the future, like we said, to answer the most pressing questions and a more official capacity. So the devs appreciate the community's patience and are committed to improving the game in the future updates. So they're saying like a lot of these things, they would like to focus more on it. Who wouldn't? But at the same time, they had to focus on certain things. And I agree with that, though. I would say pets and swimming, I don't know, kind of like expected those things, but oh well. Last couple questions here. What scripting languages will InZoi use for modding? Because it's a pretty important part. Like the modding community will be on point for this game. That's really what created the hype around The Sims the way it is today. If it wasn't for a lot of the mods, from what I'm looking at, from their past expansions and packs that they put out, a lot of it is kind of stolen mods, really. But anyway, so the modding for this needs to be on point. So this is a valid question, and they said InZoi will use Unreal Engine blueprints instead of traditional coding languages like Lua. The devs chose blueprints because it's built directly into Unreal Engine 5, making it easier to integrate with the game. It's more accessible for modders, even those without extensive coding experience. It allows for versatile, flexible modding, giving players more control over in-game content. Yeah, while Lua or other scripting languages won't be used, Blueprint's visual scripting will offer robust modding capabilities within the engine. Overall, last feedback on this, I really appreciated that they did this Q&A. I really wish that they had more time to choose the questions that were more pressing. I don't know if there's like a better way to choose those questions, but there's a lot of questions that felt like these are people that didn't even look at the questions on the Discord. They kept asking about multiplayer, and it clearly said at the beginning that multiplayer is not something they can discuss right now. But lo and behold, multiplayer was spammed. But yeah, I really appreciate the dev team for doing this, and I still can't wait. Excited for the release of InZoi. But going forward real soon, we should get some more updates. Wanted to keep this short and sweet, so appreciate y'all listening. Y'all take care, stay out of trouble. Peace.